Good 4 o'clock to you all, and welcome to another video on my channel. And this one is gonna be another story time, but this time a little bit different. Rather than talking about some kind of adventure thing that I've gone through at a young age, I'm gonna tell you about my experience with a very real phenomenon which many people encounter in their lives and can be incredibly uncomfortable and even scary if you don't know what you're dealing with. Sleep paralysis, which is something that has happened to me when I was younger, and I've kind of learned to live with it. It hasn't really happened to me a lot ever since I was like 15 maybe, but I've had it about 3-4 times in my life, and it was scary, and I decided to share my experience and what basically kind of helped me get through it, I guess, because I can imagine that some people might have pretty traumatic experiences with it. So, buckle up, or buckle down, I guess, and get ready for another story. Now, to get you up to speed on the setting of this story, I was maybe, let's give it 15. Let's give it 15, and then I was in the stage of my life where I would often suffer from nightmares. I really didn't know why, but it would just genuinely happen. I even went to like a psychiatrist with it, because I would genuinely have a nightmare like every other night, if not every night. And so, one night I'm just casually sleeping, just like you usually would during a night. All I remember is that night I had a lot of trouble falling asleep. Like I was very tired. You definitely know those nights when you're like super tired, but you still have trouble falling asleep. For some reason, the body is like, nah, you're not sleeping, but your eyes are like all super dry and stingy, and your head is hurting. All the good stuff. But I somehow finally managed to fall asleep, and I remember I had a nightmare. Right? Yeah, it was some kind of a nightmare. I, for the love of God, cannot tell you what it was. But what I do remember is that just before kind of waking up, I do remember it was a dream about drowning or something like that. Like, those dreams when you're like in a pool but you can't really swim. That was the dream, all right. And so I basically like snap out of the dream or whatever, and I opened my eyes and I can see my room. Back then I used to sleep on like a bunk bed upwards, and I had my computer on the lower level. So I would be sleeping up on the bed, and I woke up, I opened my eyes, and I can see the ceiling. I can kind of see the reflection coming from the window on the ceiling. Everything seemed fine, but it did kind of feel like I woke up, but it was maybe not fully there. Kind of like if someone just put this small like grain over my eyes, maybe thing. I don't remember that moment too well, because what I do remember was that I couldn't breathe, right? I could literally not take a breath in. It kind of felt like if you basically just close your throat, right? And then try to breathe, like you literally cannot suck air in. Maybe a bit like if someone was pushing a pillow on my face, but like I knew that was not the case, since I could clearly see, and my mouth, nose, general area was not restricted by anything. But I genuinely couldn't breathe, and that was probably one of the scariest like sleep experiences I've ever had in my life, because it did not immediately go away. Like I genuinely lay there for a few seconds just being unable to breathe. And the worst thing is, I was legit in this state just after breathing out. So I had no air in me, and I started kind of like trying to take the breath in, trying to really like force it, and it wouldn't work. And then that might have lasted maybe let's give it 5 seconds. That might have lasted like 5 seconds, and after that I finally just like snapped out of it. I sat up on my bed immediately, took like like deep breaths just to get my composure back, and I had no idea what had happened back then, right? I was just super concerned, like what the hell. Well, I just woke up and couldn't breathe. Like, is something wrong? And so, I obviously didn't get any more sleep that night. And the thing is, like, my parents were sleeping. I didn't want to wake anyone up. right? So I just basically, it was like maybe what, 4 o'clock. I got a book or something, got a light, and then kept reading, and I was tired, of course, but I just couldn't go back to sleep. There was no way. Now, I kind of forgot about it that day, right? You know, that kind of thing, like even if you have a really bad nightmare, you wake up from it during the night and you're super terrified, but then you think back about it in the morning and you just like, it wasn't actually so bad. Well, kind of that happened in the morning. I thought back and I was like, maybe I was just kind of imagining it, you know, maybe I was just still super sleepy, and like as soon as I kind of snapped out of it a few seconds later, I was fine. It's probably all good. For the 3 or 4 months after that, I have had nothing happen to me, right? I was totally fine. So it just drifted out of my mind as like a one-time experience until it happened again, very similarly. It was a different dream, I think. I just can't remember, I'm sorry. But it had very much the same run through, right? So I wake up, like I open my eyes, I can't move, can't breathe for a few seconds until I finally snap out of it, like breathing hard, trying to gain my composure back. And after it happened the second time, like at that point I was like, shit, what the fuck is this? I've seen this before. So, you know, I go on Google and I managed to find the fact that, you know, it's called sleep paralysis, and it's not actually like life-threatening, or it shouldn't really be. And like I said, like even though I was in a state of panic, it was genuinely just mostly for about 5 to 10 seconds. So I was never actually in the danger of suffocating, because, you know, like you can, a general human can go for like 2 minutes without oxygen and still actually make it. But it was still scary, and luckily, fingers crossed, it has not happened to me ever since then. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to jinx it, because, you know, it might genuinely happen at any point. It might happen tonight. It might happen tomorrow. It might never happen to me again in whatever. Also, a lot of people, when I read about it online, mentioned seeing like shadowy figures or demons or whatever during their experience, which I would love to confirm or deny that, but I genuinely can't tell, since I was spent basically all the time suffocating. So I didn't really have time to like look around the room and figure out if there are any zombies or whatever crawling onto me. I remember a sense of fear, but that fear was connected to not being able to breathe, not really some kind of apparition or ghost trying to murder me. Yeah, it was a scary experience, and that's basically the reason why I'm sharing it, in case some of you guys out there, you may have had this already, or you may get it in the future. You may never even have heard of this and may never get it in your life, right? Good for you. But in case it ever happens to you, basically just wanted to share my experience, tell you guys that most likely you are fine, okay? Now, do not confuse this if you have trouble with like irregular breathing or like snoring. That causes you to have trouble breathing during the night. That might be an issue, alright? But if you have no trouble breathing during the night in general, you don't snore or anything, and this happens to you, just know that you are most likely fine, and it's generally nothing to worry about, even though it's pretty scary. Well, that is it for me in this story time. I've been recording for 10 minutes and I feel like my throat is about to fall off. No idea how the streamers do it. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to check back in for more story times and more videos, and I will make sure to see you there. I wish you all the best of this evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.